I'll start the same way I wish someone had started with me. I was smiling when the floor under me moved. Not literally. The carpet at Calder and Finch is glued down like it owes somebody money, but you get it. The text buzzed on my wrist while the chair to my left scraped an inch closer. Don't react. They're recording you. I read it once, didn't blink, and raised my glass as if someone had just finished a charming anecdote. They laughed. I nodded. I tasted nothing. At that table, we were 12. Board members, the CEO at the head, our VP of strategy, Evan, parked right across from me, two directors who always ask questions that sound like statements, and me, ops guy, invited as a polite accessory to a vote later that afternoon. The room was too cold by design. When you keep people shivering, they don't stay angry long. They get practical. The waiter poured a pale Sancerre into my glass. I didn't touch it. Someone near the window said something about supply chains finding the new normal, and everyone hummed like they knew what that meant. My fork was angled perfectly on the charger plate. I remember the angle because I had to concentrate on something. The text was from Maya, 10 years at the firm, quietly the smartest compliance officer I've ever met. Never used exclamation points, which is how you know you can trust a person. We'd traded maybe 10 messages in as many months, all factual. She wasn't the type to send drama. I kept my eyes on the CEO while my thumb slid under the table. I didn't reply. The message repeated itself in my skull, like an elevator bell. Don't react. They're recording you. Tell us the bakery story, the chairwoman said brightly, turning her chin toward me as if she'd just remembered I existed. That's what she called the 6-week sprint, where my team rebuilt a frozen distribution loop for a national chain without letting any store go dark. I smiled. Short version, I said. We mapped night routes against walk-in recovery times, stopped pretending just-in-time is a religion, and paid the drivers the rate they were already earning in rumors. A couple of polite laughs. Evan leaned forward, elbows just outside the bread plate like he'd read that in a book. So you renegotiated contracts without legal, he said, friendly on the surface, a small hook under the word. Renegotiated. We documented impact, then legal papered it, I answered, still smiling. He glanced across the table. The CFO blew into his water like it was hot. I filed that away. The waiter set down salmon on a smear of something green I won't name because I didn't ask. I folded my napkin into my lap like a man in a photograph. If they were recording, they wanted me either performative or defensive. The two easiest ways to make an ordinary person unhireable in a single afternoon. I kept my voice where it always lived, just above the rumble of the HVAC. Your team's been spirited, the chairwoman tried again. People love your results, but we've heard about tone. There it was. Tone is corporate for, we can't catch you on competence. I nodded as if she'd offered me a second role. I'll take that as coaching, I said. Results needed a spine. We gave them one. Another small laugh. Evan took a sip like a cue. My watch was still. My phone sat face down in my pocket. I could feel the heat of it through wool. Maya doesn't warn without a path, I told myself. So I built one. I slid my thumb back to the text, hit forward, and sent it to the only inbox I own that nobody in IT can touch. An old personal Gmail I keep for receipts and plumber appointments. Then I opened Notes, typed the names of everyone at the table, and the time to the minute. The act of writing steadied the room back into shape. Walk us through your hiring changes, someone said. We've heard you've been creative. The word creative wore a little coat of accusation. We stopped rewarding survival and started rewarding fixers, I said. People who write the email and pick up the broom. The chairwoman's smile thinned like icing over cold cake. Evan's eyes gleamed, a man about to open the good part of his performance. Daniel from procurement said you called his vendor a rounding error with a lobbyist, he said lightly, as if he were quoting poetry. I chewed, swallowed, drank water. I said his vendor had turned a 6-figure problem into a 7-figure conversation, I corrected. Close enough, Evan grinned. A couple of heads tilted. The CFO stopped playing with his water. It's a strange thing, smiling while your stomach goes cold. I thought about the little red light on the credenza camera, the one the hotel staff swears is just a motion sensor. I thought about the board's new transparency policy, the one that never came with a consent checkbox. I thought about Maya, the person who never sends exclamation points, typing to me in a conference room somewhere with a door that doesn't close right. Someone clinked glass. A toast to operational excellence. I lifted mine. The room smelled faintly of lemon and printer toner. Grant, the CEO said, using my name like a hand on my shoulder. We're at a decision point. Midsummer consolidation, some redundancies, a leaner slate. You're a key piece. He paused. The room did that fake hush crowds do when they want to hear a single person say the wrong thing. Any concerns about fitting into a more centralized communications culture? Another hook under communications. I smiled at the salmon. I like clear lines, I said. Central, lateral, diagonal. If it's on paper and it matches reality, I'll build to it. The CFO nodded as if I'd given the right password. Evan looked mildly disappointed I hadn't thrown a punch at the air. Under the table, I tapped my watch. I'm not the gadget type, but I run a cheap audio note app for field visits, because memory is a kind liar. The app had one job, timestamp snippets when I held the crown down 3 seconds. I pressed. A subtle vibration confirmed what no one at the table could see. I wasn't just in the room was in me now, 10 seconds at a time. About expenses, Evan said carefully, pulling a sheet from a slim leather folder. A flag popped up last quarter. A dinner at Fellini's. 3 guests listed as contractors. We couldn't match names. He laid the paper down like a card he hadn't yet decided to play. I didn't reach for it. Contractors were the bakery's night lead and 2 drivers, I said. They're not in our system. They were in a mess I needed to untangle. Evan tipped his head. And alcohol? 2 glasses of wine on a 12-hour shift fix. I paid the difference personally, I said, still looking at the CEO. Receipts are in my file. You can have them before dessert. I pressed the watch again. The vibration felt like a pulse I could control when I couldn't control anything else. The chairwoman's smile came back, painted thinner. We appreciate your forthrightness. She turned her water glass a 1/4 inch, a signal I'd seen before. This is where we pivot to the part we rehearsed. My phone stayed where it was. My shoulders relaxed by force. If they wanted a scene, they would not get one. They'd get a man who eats salmon and answers questions in complete sentences. I kept my breathing steady and gave them nothing extra, like you do with a dog that's still learning not to jump. We moved on to market share in the Midwest, to a question about routing software that made 3 people's eyes glaze, to a joke about how my spreadsheets have more tabs than a bartender at closing time. I laughed at the right volume. I pressed my watch 3 more times. My hands never shook. When the coffee came, burnt hotel stuff poured into cups that cost more than my boots. Evan went for friendly again. You've been good for us, he said, palm open. We want you to be even better. Everyone at the table smiled with teeth, the way people do when they've agreed to say the same sentence different ways. I nodded, the picture of a man who believes compliments. Maya's message sat in my head like a landmark you can't drive past because the road ends. Don't react. They're recording you. Fine. I wouldn't react. I would remember. I would fix the part of my life I could fix. What happened, when, and who pretended they were just asking. As we stood to leave, coats and pleasantries and that dumb little joke about how nobody really eats dessert anymore, Evan stepped in close enough that I could see the thread shift in his tie. Good tone, he said softly, approving like a coach after a drill. I smiled as if he'd complimented my shoes. It's easy when everyone's reasonable, I said lightly. He flicked his eyes toward the credenza camera and then back to me. Just a blink. Just enough. In the elevator down to the lobby, the mirrored walls gave me back a man who looked exactly like me, and not much like himself. The doors opened on the clatter of plates. and the smell of bleach. I walked to the hotel's business center, logged into my personal inbox, and saw my own forwarded screenshot sitting there like a receipt. I attached a simple note and sent it to my private cloud. Names, timestamps, the list of questions they'd just thought of, the expense sheet Evan had performed with. I didn't add adjectives. I didn't predict outcomes. I saved the facts and told myself a sentence I could stand on. I kept smiling because that's what the room asked for. But from that moment on, I wasn't performing. I was building. But that was just the beginning. The board lunch ended with polite applause, half hugs, and a $1,000 dessert tray that no one touched. By the time I stepped outside, the sky had gone that cheap gray color that makes you doubt your own memory of daylight. My reflection followed me in the glass doors, a man who'd smiled for 2 hours straight and now couldn't remember how not to. I sat in my car without turning on the ignition. My phone lit up with company notifications, meeting requests, one unread email from HR flagged Quick Chat. The subject line said, "Just a touch base." Corporate 4 were checking if you're cracking yet. Inside, the office felt too quiet. People lower their voices around someone who's either been promoted or targeted. They just don't know which. I dropped my briefcase, opened the shared drive, and found a new folder that hadn't been there yesterday. Ops Review, Q2. Inside it sat a spreadsheet labeled Behavioral Metrics. I didn't need to open it to know my name was in there. I did anyway. Column headers, engagement tone, team responsiveness, conflict potential. Next to my name, someone had written monitor. I smiled at the screen because the alternative was laughing out loud. Maya's text had been the alarm. This was the aftershock. I locked my office door, opened notes again, and added the date. Then I hit record on the same watch app that had saved me once already. June 3rd, I whispered. HR flag. Behavioral metrics spreadsheet. Origin unknown. The red light blinked once. I saved it. 10 minutes later, my internal phone rang. "Grant, hey!" The voice was chipper, stretched tight like a balloon. "Do you have a second? We just wanted to connect about yesterday's lunch. Everyone loved your insights." HR loved my insights the same way hunters love deer. "Sure," I said. In their glass office, 2 HR reps smiled the way dentists do before the drill. "We're trying this new feedback loop," the older one said, clicking her pen. "After key leadership sessions, we like to capture impressions while everything's still fresh." Capture. I almost laughed again. "Of course," I said. "Fresh impressions are valuable." She nodded. There was just one small note. "The chair mentioned your responses felt rehearsed." I met her eyes. "Would you prefer they were improvised?" That landed heavier than I meant. The second rep blinked hard. No, just... We value authenticity. I'll work on being more authentic at recorded lunches," I said quietly. "Anything else?" She cleared her throat. "No, that's it. Thanks for your time, Grant." I walked out feeling like I'd stepped in something invisible. Back at my desk, the CFO passed by. That awkward half-smile of someone who's been told not to pick a side. "Heard the board lunch went well," he said, already turning. "You know how they are. They test everybody once in a while." "They're testing the wiring," I said, "just making sure the lights flicker when they flip the switch." He didn't answer, just kept walking. At 4:12 p.m., Maya appeared in my doorway, holding a folder she didn't need. She closed the door behind her. That alone was a risk. "They'll think you're coaching me," I said. "They already do," she replied. "Listen carefully." Her tone was low, controlled. Compliance wasn't briefed on yesterday's recording, but legal signed off. Evan's initiative, approved by the chair. Internal label, behavioral pilot. "They're calling it a pilot?" I said. She nodded once. "Goal is to measure emotional alignment in leadership communications." Meaning, how close I stay to the script. Exactly. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling tile with the faint crack running through it. "You were supposed to be in that meeting." I was. They rescheduled it under a different calendar tag. Lunch logistics. No notice. So they're cutting compliance out. They're cutting me out, she corrected, because I wouldn't greenlight behavioral monitoring without consent, so I flagged it to myself. How long do I have before they edit the footage? She checked her watch. They won't touch it until tomorrow. The external contractor handles storage. You have 1 night. 1 night to do what? To make your copy. That night, I didn't go home. I went to the office gym, showered, then walked back to my desk under the pretense of late shipment data. My past still opened every door. It hadn't flagged me yet. At 10:47 p.m., I plugged in an external drive, the kind nobody uses anymore, and mirrored the secure meeting directory. 42 gigabytes of boardroom video, time-stamped with metadata. I didn't watch any of it. Not yet. I didn't need to. The act of copying was enough. Before I left, I slid a single sheet under Maya's keyboard. Done. Keep your phone silent tomorrow. At home, I sat in the dark kitchen, laptop humming. I opened the copied files, scrolled through thumbnails of my own face frozen mid-smile. There it was, the camera on the credenza, wide shot, red light blinking. Every micro-expression of that lunch, archived for analysis. I didn't play the sound, just looked at the frame where Evan leaned in with that perfect boardroom grin, the one he'd probably practiced in a mirror. The timestamp read 13:42:18. I took a screenshot and wrote one sentence under it. 13:42:18. Accusation introduced. I was tired, but not in the way sleep fixes. The next morning, the email went out to department heads. Compliance officer reassigned to external audit review. No Maya, no warning. I called her desk. Voicemail. At 11 out a.m., Evan appeared in my doorway holding coffee. Heard you were burning the midnight oil, he said, casual as a cat. Just keeping the lights on, I replied. He nodded, perched on the edge of my guest chair. Listen, don't take yesterday too personally. The board likes you. They just need to know you can play ball. I prefer to keep score, I said. He laughed softly, pretending to find that charming. You've got fire, Grant. Don't let it burn the wrong people. I pressed my watch crown. 1, 2, 3 seconds. Vibration. Saved. When he left, I sat very still, letting the sound of the air vent fill the room. That's when the second text came in from an unknown number. They think you don't know what's next. Don't prove them right. No name, no signature. Just that. I stared at it, thumb hovering over reply, then locked the screen instead. They wanted me isolated. They wanted me reactive. I wasn't going to give them either. I opened my notebook, drew a single line across the top, and wrote, Phase 2. Let them talk first. And as the office buzzed faintly beyond my door, I smiled. The same calm, professional smile I'd worn at that table. Because I finally understood something simple. They weren't the only ones recording anymore. And then silence. The kind that means something's gone wrong. The week before the vote, meetings vanished from my calendar. The usual flood of CCs dried up. Slack channels went dead when I typed a message. Isolation is subtle in corporate warfare. No one locks you out. They just stop letting you in. Friday morning, I badged in early. The security guard nodded the same way he always did, only slower, like he wasn't sure if he should. Upstairs, the glass walls of the boardroom were frosted over. A private session. Through the blur, I saw silhouettes. Evans, easy to recognize. Tall, loose posture, always gesturing with both hands like he was sculpting air. The chair sat beside him, back straight as a ruler. By noon, an email hit my inbox. Subject: clarification of financial practices. It came from internal audit, unsigned. A PDF was attached. Inside, 3 highlighted transactions with my initials, all framed to look like personal reimbursements. Approved without authorization. The numbers were right. The story wasn't. I stared at it, pulse steady. They'd been building this. The board lunch wasn't a test. It was an opening scene. The phone rang before I could even close the file. Grant, it's Evan. Quick heads up. Some questions are circulating, nothing big, just optics. You free for a chat? Always, I said. He arrived 5 minutes later, hands in pockets. That mock-concerned look executives practice in reflective glass. Between us, he started, someone's worried about procedure. They're saying you bypassed sign-off chains. Someone, I said. He nodded gravely. Not me, obviously, just, you know how gossip moves. I do. He waited, expecting panic, denial, a twitch. Anything he could label as uncooperative. Instead, I smiled. You know what's great about procedures, Evan? What's that? They leave footprints. That one made him blink, just once, but I caught it. You're taking this the right way, he said finally, and left with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. When the door shut, I pressed the watch crown. 1, 2, 3 seconds. Saved. That night, I sent a message to my private email. Subject, sequence. I attached the copied video file from the board, lunch, the HR audio, and every timestamp note I'd recorded since. The total size was 61 gigabytes, heavy enough to bury a career. I encrypted it twice, stored it on a cloud link with timed access, and set it to deliver automatically to 2 addresses if I didn't check in by Monday morning. One to Maya's personal inbox, the other to the company's outside counsel. Insurance, in case someone tried to make me disappear quietly. At 1 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering. Grant, Maya's voice, low, careful. I'm calling from a burner. They put me on administrative leave. I closed my eyes. Because of me? Because I told them their behavioral pilot violates state consent laws. Do you have proof? I have everything they thought they deleted. I exhaled, slow. Maya, I backed up the board lunch. I have their bait. Then we're holding the same matchbox, she said. We just need the right moment. The right moment came 2 days later, the quarterly board review. I walked into the room 10 minutes early. Evan was already there, sleeves rolled, acting casual. Big day, he said. Every day's a big day when you're honest, I replied. He chuckled. Let's keep it friendly, yeah? I took my seat. The chair entered, followed by the CFO, 2 lawyers, and the head of HR. The atmosphere was pure theater. Smiles rehearsed, folders aligned, microphones discreetly glowing red. The chair began. Before we proceed with Q2, we have concerns regarding discretionary spending within operations. Specifically, I raised a hand politely. Before we proceed, could legal confirm this meeting is being recorded? The lawyer blinked. Yes, as per transparency policy. Perfect, I said. Then for the record, I'd like to submit an evidence packet. It includes a mirrored copy of last month's behavioral pilot recording, unedited. It also includes metadata showing that 3 questions directed at me were scripted by the strategy department ahead of time. Same language, same timestamps, same prompts used today. The room went dead still. The CFO's pen stopped midair. HR's lips parted like she'd forgotten how to breathe. Evan laughed nervously. Grant, this isn't... Sit down, the chair said sharply. I placed a slim flash drive on the table, slid it forward. It's password protected. Counsel has the key. Silence again, thicker, colder. The chair's eyes cut to legal. We'll recess. Evan tried to speak. With respect, there's nothing... Evan, she said, step outside. He hesitated, jaw tightening, then stood. The door shut behind him. Inside, the lawyer leaned toward me. Where did you obtain this? From a company server. No breach. Just good archiving. You understand the implications? I understand you'll either investigate this properly, or I'll send the same packet to the state board that handles compliance licensing. Your choice which headline you want. She stared, then nodded once. Understood. When they filed out, Evan was waiting in the hallway, phone in hand, pale as printer paper. You just killed your career, he hissed. Maybe, I said, walking past him. But I didn't bury anyone else's. He reached for my arm. I stopped, looked at his hand until he pulled it back. Grant, he said quietly, You don't know who you're up against. I do now. I walked out, heart steady, steps slow. That evening, my phone lit up with messages, legal requests, HR inquiries, and finally one from Maya. They paused the vote. Evans under review. 2 board members recused. You did it. No emojis. Just that. For the first time in weeks, I laughed, not loudly. Just a breath that felt like release. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. The morning after the storm, the office was quieter than I'd ever heard it. Not tense. Hollow, like a theater after the audience leaves. But the lights are still on. Half the leadership suite didn't show up. Evan's nameplate was gone from his door by noon. HR sent a company-wide memo titled Commitment to Transparency, which is corporate code for we got caught. And this time someone has the receipts. I spent the day pretending to work, moving folders, answering old emails, waiting for the other shoe. It didn't drop, not the way I expected. At 3:40 p.m., my desk phone rang. "Grant, it's Rachel." The chairwoman's voice, calm, deliberate. "Could you step into my office, please?" Her window overlooked the city, all glass and ambition. She gestured to the seat across from her and closed the door herself. "Legal has completed preliminary review," she began. "The board is adjusting certain responsibilities while we conduct a wider audit." "Adjusting?" I repeated. "Evan has been placed on leave. 2 members have recused themselves pending inquiry." She took a slow breath. "Your cooperation, while unconventional, is noted." "I wasn't trying to be unconventional," I said. "Just accurate." She gave a small, tired smile. "Accuracy is rarer than honesty these days." There was a pause, heavy and human. Then she said, "The company would like to offer you a transition package. It's generous. We know your experience has been compromised." "Challenging?" I nodded. "What happens to Maya?" "Compliance will be reinstated under interim leadership. If your contact has supporting documentation, legal will welcome it." I leaned back, folded my hands. "And my reputation?" She met my eyes. "Sometimes silence is the best endorsement. You'll get what you need in writing." I stood, straightened my jacket. "Then let's do it clean." That night, I cleared my desk. No box. Just a single laptop bag and the same coffee mug I'd brought my first day. The office was dim, screensavers drifting like ghosts across monitors. In the elevator, I caught my reflection again. This time, it looked real. The man in the mirror wasn't performing anymore. He was finished auditioning. Downstairs, the lobby guard waved. "Big guy," he said softly. "They said you were done." "I am," I said, but not like they meant. Outside, the air smelled like rain on steel. I walked to my car without checking my phone once. For the first time in months, I didn't need to. 2 weeks later, the official statement dropped. Following an internal review, the company has identified procedural inconsistencies within executive operations. Interim oversight appointed. No mention of names, no word of recordings, but the ones who needed to know, knew. Evan's LinkedIn went silent. The chair stepped down for health reasons. Maya returned to compliance with a promotion that didn't exist before. She texted me once from her new office. "We're rebuilding the system from the inside. You left at the right time." I wrote back, "Make it worth it." I didn't rush into anything. I took a month off. No boardrooms, no deadlines, no people talking in circles. I rented a small cabin upstate with bad reception and worse coffee, and let silence prove it could be a friend. Most mornings I'd sit on the porch, laptop open, watching the woods shift color. Oh, I started writing again, not reports or forecasts, just sentences, pieces of memory I hadn't processed yet. How you can be surrounded by people and still feel invisible. How smiling through sabotage feels like balancing glass on your teeth. How control doesn't always mean power. Sometimes it means patience. By the 3rd week, I'd stopped checking my old inbox entirely. The world can run itself without me. Then, one morning, an envelope arrived. No return address, just my name. Inside, a single note, typed. People are still talking about how calm you were. That's what scared them most. No signature, no threat, just the truth. I folded it neatly, slid it into my notebook, and closed it. The birds outside went on singing like nothing had changed, because for them, nothing had. Months later, Maya called. "You're in the report," she said. Anonymous, but clear. The board cited unlawful behavioral recording practices and leadership manipulation. The firm settled quietly. "Good," I said. "Quiet's fine. You could come back, you know. Different division, new slate." I looked at the line of trees outside the cabin window, the wind moving through them like an old promise. "No," I said. "I built enough walls for one lifetime." "Then what now?" "I teach people how to keep their own receipts," she laughed softly. "Of course you do." Later, I found myself driving past the city one last time. The tower where I'd spent 6 years was still there. Same tinted windows, same revolving door. But it didn't look powerful anymore. It looked small, like a reflection of who I used to be. I parked across the street for a minute, just to breathe. Inside, somewhere above the 15th floor, a meeting was happening without me. That used to scare me. Being replaced, being forgotten. Now it felt like relief. When I drove away, the skyline didn't shrink. It just stayed where it was. The road stretched open, clean and simple. I kept the flash drive, though, not as a weapon, as a reminder. Because power isn't about who's recording you. It's about who keeps the record.